Yeah, yeah. Ball so hard, you better believe me, it's scary. It's basketball at the bar with Calvin and Barry. So put a tip in the jar, cause these dudes can really fill it up. Whether it's buckets you need or just a beer in a cup. We're here for fresh conversations and some delicious libations. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. My boys got you covered like you being guarded by payers. From the glove to the claw and everyone else in between. Calvin and Barry got everything that you need. For sure. So sit back, relax, because we're starting the show. It's basketball at the bar. Grab your drinks and let's go. Yeah. Grab a drink and let's go. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Calvin and Barry. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Let's get it.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Wednesday Night Live. Hope you're ready to have a good time. Let's get it started.
Big time, number 9. Diamonds in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the number, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. Big time, lot of sun. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of pine. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me, yeah. Big time, big time. Big time. Number 9. Diamonds in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of grind. Just running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me. Big time. Number 9. Diamonds in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Numbers, that's a running up the numbers, that's a running up the 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 numbers.
They can never stop what we do. Running in and out with my whole crew. Oh, heading to the top, what a view. Standing on the rock like I told you. Cause they ain't got no roof off this mother. We will never be yours. Learn this on the way, man. Gotta keep the heart pure. They ain't got no rewards. We will never be yours. God told me the way, work hard, standing endure, man. They ain't got no rewards.
Smash up that like button. We're starting in 6 minutes.
Never ever go sell your soul, bruh. Cause that's it, worth more than gold, cuz. Look the little homie in his eyes, too. I say the same, but don't look surprised. No time for jokes. Man, I'm here for all kind of smoke. Man, I'm here for all kind of reasons. Which one is this, you won't know. Cause I'm in and out like the seasons. Still gotta give it to Jesus. If you men go to grievous, just know won't move my allegiance. Because I was told to not lose hope, cause that truth close. If they wanna know how we do it, say God got me, no loophole. Then they wondering why we moving like we don't care what that loophole. Baby girl, I know the facts, but we won't get into all of that. Just run it back, man. They can never stop what we do. Running in and out with my whole crew. Oh, heading to the top, what a view. Standing on the rock like I told you. Cause they got no rewards, we will never be yours. Learn this on the way, man, gotta keep the heart pure. They ain't got no rewards, we will never be yours. Rewards for me, still I live for my Lord's glory. If they ask for my war stories, I will show them it's all on me, man, they will not prevail. My vision's heighten up as well, I see them higher up the scale. But trust me, I am not for sale. Facts, I am not for you, you are not for us. We will not be moved, this and go we trust. We will never lose, this for all of us who got better views. Moving on them us, so ahead of snooze. We will not be rushed, we will not be wooed. That's just not enough, God's approving us from above. But you ain't offered much as a plug. They can never stop what we do. Running in and out with my whole crew, oh. Heading to the top, what a view. Standing on the rock like I told you. Cause they ain't got no rewards, we will never be yours. Learn this on the way, man, gotta keep the heart pure. They ain't got no rewards, we will never be yours. God told me to wait, work hard, stand and endure, man. They ain't got no rewards.
No need to repeat. Run up on me, watch you fall to your knees. Tip my hat when it's time for the kill. Ain't no beast when you're really real. I am the boss, I am the Don. I am the one they call Lucky Charm. Got my own shit, I don't need your farm. Life was so hard, it made me weak. Built to last, this girl ain't weak. Sturdy and still when I plant my feet. Got it out the mud, I was back to my sleep. Look to God, he supplies my needs. Endless faith is what brought me next level prosperity. Silent power moves is what I'm giving. They love to hate the world they can't live in. Always present for the high roads. Go swim within the deep lows. Low. What told the future? Who knows? I don't do it for the likes, I do it for the love. Do it for the ones who really need a hug, cause they had it tough, never had enough. Feared, loved, and respected. Using words as a weapon. Test and she. Hurry up quick, El Jefe's coming soon. Sit up straight when she enters the room. Be enthused, but don't look too amused. This is her queendom. Hurry up quick, El Jefe's coming soon. Sit up straight when she enters the room. Be enthused, but don't look too amused. This is her queendom, please respect her rule. Smile in my face, what ain't my place but act gully on cyber shakes. Let's pump brakes, let's be frank. Running after him when you're the chase. You are the catch and he's the net. How quickly do we all forget to honor these small policies, my darling? You are the empress queen. Man, respect or he'll neglect. You are the wind beneath his wings. You are the season, you are the reason why this world can breathe. Giving sons eyes to see and daughters dreams to believe. Anything less than the best for you is high treason, queen. Hurry up quick, El Jefe's coming soon. Sit up straight when she enters the room. Be enthused, but don't look too amused. Be enthused, but don't look too amused. This is her queendom, please respect her rule. Hurry up quick, El Jefe's coming soon. Sit up straight when she enters the room. Be enthused, but don't look too amused. Be enthused, but don't look too amused. Be enthused, but be enthused, but be in.
The GP will see you now.
Why you upset like Cinderella teens? You should see the things I feel inside these denim jeans. I can't associate with y'all this shit like ketamine. Been on one, been on two, been on everything.
Who's ready to party?
With my squad, what the fuck you want? So be rolling gas, I can't hang, bitch, I'm fucking grown. I got people
Smash up that like button, we're starting in 30 seconds.
People just tuning in and the love is strong. Then they gon' want a piece when you got it like that. Like Jake said, we gon' spend it, get it right back. Stack that internet money to the site crash. They on IG tryna get a like back. See, they don't talk that talk, they just type fast. Yeah, we real life cool, it's really like that. I might roll an eighth inside the blunt, that's a nightcap. Like where my lighter at, boy, I got a flight to cash. Do these ups and these downs with a guy and a dead thing change.
Man, what a long Wednesday. Had a lot of work going on. I cannot wait to get to the bar to talk about basketball. I want to meet up with Brian, the bouncer, PK man, Alfie man. I think they're all there waiting for me at the bar. I gotta call Calvin. I gotta call Calvin, see if he's ready. This guy's been lollygagging for too long. Yo, what's up, dude? You almost ready? We gotta head to the bar. The show's starting soon.
Yeah, man. I was just finishing my set. I'm almost ready though. I'll meet you downstairs.
All right. I'm gonna call a cab right now. I'll see you in a second.
Sounds good.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Tong. What can I say to convince you to have lunch with me?
Oh man, rain check on the lunch. We're in a bit of a hurry.
Have you heard of the Tiki Bar? Do you know where that is?
70 Fleming.
That's right. That's where we're headed. Jimmy, is it?
That's who I am. Who are you?
We're Calvin and Barry, dude. We got a show tonight. We got to get to the bar.
You serious?
Heck yeah, we're serious, man. That's why we're in a hurry. We're on the way to the bar.
Yeah, we got a live show tonight. We're in a hurry, man. Can you step on it? If you can get us there as quick as possible, we'd really appreciate it.
Okay.
Open the gate! Hey, get me! Ho! Hi, boy! 得啦，Jimmy，得啦，唔使咁急啊 ，OK？ 得，大佬。hey， 我行到我去。
Damn, Jimmy, we're trying to get there alive, bro.
Not scared, are you?
Dude, you must get pulled over all the time.
But no accidents.
Man, keep doing you, Jimmy. Keep doing you.
But no accidents.
I think that's the fastest we've ever made it here.
Dude, that is the fastest we've ever made it here. Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate you, Jimmy. All right, we made it to the bar. Calvin, welcome in, everybody. Welcome into Wednesday night parties. I see everybody here in the chat. PK, Alfie Man, the bouncer. I know Kai's watching. We got Brian here. We got Asha. Welcome in, everybody. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today, and we're messing around with new intros. Jackie Chan is a guest host here on the show tonight, but we got a ton of stuff to talk about. So, hey, let's go ahead and jump right into it, Calvin. But first off, I just gotta say, shout out to my Sacramento Kings. The Kings are currently 7-6, dude. They're lighting the beam, and it's feeling good. But we're gonna talk about them here a little bit later. But Calvin, what's up, dude? We finally made it to the bar here. How was your day, man?
Man, it was a long day. I'm definitely glad to be at the bar. Rough day at work, but hey, it's all better now, right? We're gonna talk some basketball. Thanks you guys for hanging in with us there, letting us experiment a little and blow off some steam. That was fun.
Yeah. Make sure you guys smash up that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're live every single Wednesday night, and we talk about everything that's going down in the NBA. We had a ton of games today. 8 games are finished already. 2 of them are still ongoing. We'll definitely talk about those and jump into everything. But we got a ton of stuff to talk about today. So first off, Calvin, I want to just talk about the overall state of the NBA, right? We know the Nets suck. We know the Lakers suck. We got a ton of injuries and other things to talk about. But I want to talk about the top of the NBA, and that's the Western and Eastern Conference. So currently right now, the top of the Eastern Conference, we have the Celtics, the Bucks, the Hawks, and the Cavs. And in the Western Conference, the Blazers are crazy. They're on the top of the standings. We have the Nuggets in second place, then the Jazz, also another surprise, and the Suns. We'll talk about the Blazers and the Jazz a little bit later, but just kind of wanted to hear from you overall. How's everything looking? Where do you think the state of the NBA is right now?
Outside of the Blazers, the Western Conference, the top half, really, nobody is probably too surprised to see the Nuggets up there. But definitely, like you said, the Blazers and the Jazz are the surprise teams of the year so far. I think the Eastern Conference is pretty status quo, I would say. I mean, Celtics, obviously, we all knew that they were going to be a good team, even after learning that Ime Udoka was suspended for the year. They've still got too much firepower there and coming off of a really great run last season. And then, the Cavs, again, you can argue that maybe they're a little bit of a surprise. They're kind of coming back down to earth, but they're absolutely loaded. So I definitely expected them to be, in the top half of the Eastern Conference. And the Hawks, you can argue they're a surprise team as well, but a lot of new additions there. And they're definitely playing really, really well. Had a rough game tonight, but that's what happens when you run into the buzzsaw that is the Boston Celtics.
Yep, very true. And Boston's been absolutely killing it. They're on the longest winning streak currently in the NBA at 8 games. Things are starting to make sense for them. The Bucks, they were, on top. I believe they started out 9-0 on the season. They've definitely had some losses to deal with. They're getting better. They're waiting to get healthy, and that's kind of the main thing for them, is they're waiting for Chris Middleton to get back. We'll definitely talk about that here. But, good news for if you're a Celtics fan, a Bucks fan, a Hawks fan, and a Cavs fan. All these teams are looking like legit contenders. And honestly, we know the Celtics made the finals last year. Unfortunately, they lost. The Bucks won a championship the year before that. They've been dealing with injuries. But both the Hawks and the Cavs both made big deals here in the offseason in bringing in, DeJounte Murray for the Hawks and bringing in Donovan Mitchell for the Cavs. And those seem to be paying off, at least early on here in the season, with those teams being at the top of the Eastern Conference. As far as the Western Conference, the Blazers are an absolute surprise for me, Calvin. I did not expect anything to happen with this team. This is probably one of the quickest rebuilds I saw in NBA history, right? They're not going to be at the top of the Western Conference for the remaining of the season. I don't see that happening, right? Things are going to even out. The cream of the crop is going to rise. The Blazers had a great offseason. They made some good additions. They took a gamble on draft pick and Shaedon Sharpe that's been playing pretty well. And they just kind of meshed together. But the biggest thing for them is having a healthy Damian Lillard. But they're at the top of the Western Conference right now. They're looking pretty good. We expected the Nuggets to be good again, right? At getting Jamal Murray back and Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, they have Jokic. As long as that dude is healthy, this team is going to be competing. And then the Jazz, another surprise, right? They trade Donovan Mitchell to the Cavs. They trade Rudy Gobert to the Timberwolves. And they had the best record in the West for a while now. They're dropping a little bit. They've had a few hardships as of late, but they're looking pretty good. And then, of course, the Phoenix Suns, they didn't win, but they were in the NBA Finals just a couple seasons ago. So definitely expect them to be back towards the top. And I believe they had the best record in the Western Conference last year, potentially the best record in the NBA last year, right?
Best record in the NBA is correct.
Yeah, so the state of the NBA, a couple surprises at the top of the Western Conference standings. Like you said, the East is kind of, where it should be. But it's interesting to see these teams positioning. Also, got to give a shout out. My Sacramento Kings are in the 8th spot right now in the Western Conference. So we'll see what happens there. Let's talk a little bit about injuries, Calvin, because, we know that injuries have a huge impact on these basketball teams and how they do. Jaren Jackson returns to action. We got to see him play a little bit, a little rusty. You know, he had a couple blocks in his last game.
As you would expect, yeah.
But yeah, he's missed a lot of time. I honestly thought that this dude wasn't going to be back until probably the end of the year or the start of next year. So this is definitely good news for the Grizzlies.
Yes, absolutely. And it comes at a really good time. They just had Desmond Bane go out. I think it's a sprained right toe, something like that. They're expecting him to miss a couple of weeks. So they could definitely use another one of their big horses coming back. And yeah, like you said, it's much earlier than expected. I had originally heard January was the earliest that he would play. So it's good to see that he made a speedy recovery.
Yeah, great news for the Memphis Grizzlies. James Harden's currently dealing with a foot injury. You have any updates on James?
They're still expecting him to miss in total about a month. I think he's been sidelined for a little over a week. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But I haven't heard any new updates. They're still kind of just, stringing him along. It's a foot injury, and they obviously hope to get him back soon. It's funny, the Blazers and the Sixers are the two teams in the NBA that have three guys averaging over 20 points per game. So I think the Sixers are able to kind of weather the storm without Harden for now. And then once they get him back, obviously it's full steam ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll definitely talk about the Sixers. They're currently 7-7. And we'll talk about, kind of what their outlook looks like for this season. I know a lot of people were pretty high on them. I thought when they traded for James Harden, that was going to help boost this team. But of course, you got to be healthy and you got to be on the court to have an impact. Next up, Kawhi Leonard. This is a really puzzling situation for me because we don't really hear much about Kawhi, right? The dude is not very, I don't want to say popular. He's just like, nothing leaks out of the Kawhi Leonard camp, right? So you don't hear anything about him that he doesn't want you to hear. We saw this back in, San Antonio. The team was saying he's cleared to play, but he's not playing. That seemed to cause a rift for them. He didn't want to play there anymore. They end up trading him to Toronto. We all know that he chose the Clippers. He chose Paul George. Yes, he missed the entire last season due to an injury. We had a lot of hopes for him this year and for that Clippers team, bringing in John Wall. And of course, Kawhi Leonard, when he's healthy, he's probably a top 3 player in the NBA. But Calvin, he's missed a ton of games so far this season. Any updates on Kawhi Leonard? And I kind of want to hear your thoughts on, what he means to the Clippers and what we can expect from him through the rest of the season.
Well, as far as updates go, I'm not really sure that Kawhi is dealing with a current injury. I mean, this seems to be much along the lines of the load management Kawhi that we've come to know for many, many years now. Obviously, he hasn't played in a long time. He's working his way back, and the Clippers want to be super careful with him because they want to go into the postseason fully healthy and ready to go. But I think Kawhi has, whether you like it or not, he has earned this, ability for him to just basically come to the team and say, when he wants to play and when he doesn't, or when he feels good enough to play and when he doesn't. Like I said, whether you believe it's the right thing or not, it's Kawhi Leonard. So the Clippers are paying him a lot of money. They expect to be a really, really tough team down the stretch in the playoffs, and they would much rather have him available than not. So I think he's just going to continue this route of, no back-to-backs and basically taking it easy, quote unquote, until they really, really need him. I was dead wrong about the Clippers, at least so far. I thought that they would be a much better team, at least record-wise, but it's become very clear to me that they're prioritizing health over anything else. They would much rather be a fully healthy team and not have to worry about, a COVID-related absence in a play-in tournament. So I still think that they'll be a tough out, obviously, in the postseason. But the question or the debate is, how many games do you really, not necessarily forfeit, but how many games are you willing to give up just so you can have a healthy team going to the postseason? Because this is still a roster that's got a lot of new faces. Kawhi didn't play at all last year. John Wall hasn't played in a long time. And none of these guys have really played that much together. So they're obviously a very deep team. They're a very talented team. But are they going to be able to put it together? And, everybody talks about peaking at the right time. Can the Clippers peak at the right time, even if they're, somewhere in the bottom portion of the playoff standings.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Next up, we're talking about another guy in LA, and this is LeBron James. Obviously, he's aging, right? Most people are looking at LeBron to break the all-time scoring record this year, the record that's held by Kareem. LeBron's been sitting, dude. He's been dealing with it. I believe it's a thigh injury. The team is losing basketball games, so it doesn't really make him want to rush back, right? It seems like they don't have enough. They're waiting to kind of figure something out, whether it's a trade or something. Any updates on LeBron?
No, again, I think this is one of those things, a very important star player in the league that they're not going to rush back. 37 years old, obviously the Lakers are not doing so well right now. So it's not like they're desperate to throw anybody out just yet. We haven't reached that point. But man, I mean, I think it's a strained adductor muscle, which we saw him suffer a couple of years ago, and he had to miss a lot of time with it. So they're probably very cautious that they don't want that to happen again here in the same situation.
Also a year where the Lakers were not playing well, right? So maybe if they were a competitive team, he wouldn't have missed that much time. But he's kind of finding himself in a similar situation here. So quite interesting. We know Tyler Hero is currently dealing with an injury. Any updates on Tyler Hero?
I got to be honest, I don't have any updates on Tyler Hero. Do you?
Yeah, currently it says Tyler Hero is out with an ankle injury. He didn't travel with the team to Toronto. This shouldn't affect him for very, very long. But definitely something to monitor here. Tyler Hero out with an ankle injury. Chris Middleton would be the next guy on my list here. Obviously, there's multiple injuries going on currently in the NBA, but I just kind of want to touch on some of the major ones, ones that are impactful. Obviously, Chris Middleton got injured last year in the playoffs. I definitely think it had something to do with Milwaukee not making it back to the NBA Finals. But it's a wrist injury. He's still marked as out. Any thoughts on Chris Middleton, Cal?
No, I think the Bucks are going to be just fine. We saw them get off to such a great start. Giannis missed a few games as of late as well, which is why they've suffered a few, unusual losses, I guess you could say, for their team. But I think they feel very confident about who they have, and again, very confident that they're going to be a supreme title contender once they get everybody back healthy. And as far as I'm aware, I haven't heard of any setbacks for Chris Middleton. So they're still expecting, end of December, early January for him to return. And once they get the ball rolling again, look out, because Cream City, I know they're not allowed to wear the jerseys anymore, but they're still Cream City, right?
Oh man, that's hilarious. Shout out to PK. PK's name dropping here in the chat.
I know, he's stealing the show, man.
Matthew's here. Matthew, the party just started about 30 minutes ago, so welcome in. Thanks for joining in. 35 minutes ago is when the party started, I believe. But yeah, a lot of injuries currently going on in the NBA. We could mention Lonzo Ball, LaMelo Ball, a lot of people dealing with injuries. Any updates on any of the Ball brothers?
Well, I think LaMelo's already back playing. I could be wrong, but I think he made his season debut a few days ago. As far as Lonzo goes, they were happy with the most recent knee surgery that he had back in October. They're expecting him to return again, sometime around the beginning of the year. And what he's going to look like when he comes back, who knows? How many games he'll be able to play right away, how many minutes. They're definitely going to be careful with him coming off a bunch of knee surgeries. But Chicago desperately needs him if they're going to make any sort of run in the postseason.
100%. Yeah, LaMelo actually played tonight against the Pacers, but he rolls his ankle again and leaves the game. So interesting to see what happens here with LaMelo Ball. All right, let's jump here a little bit into the standings. We talked about the top of both conferences, right? The teams that are doing well. Let's talk about the teams that, you and I thought might have done better, but they seem to be struggling quite mightily so far. First off, it's the Brooklyn Nets. They're currently 6-9. They just got blown out by the Sacramento Kings. They gave up 150 plus points, and it's not looking good in Brooklyn. Kyrie Irving is potentially returning on Sunday against the Grizzlies. We saw reports today that the Nets are not happy with Ben Simmons and his progression. Obviously, they fired Coach Steve Nash. I saw a meme today showing Coach Jock Vaughn before and after his stint with the Nets, right, where he grew the beard out and he looks significantly older with that big gray beard. But Calvin, what did the Nets do at this point, honestly?
I think it's time to blow it up, man. Everybody is, as you mentioned, growing older before our very eyes. Kevin Durant, the bus driver, is throwing his teammates underneath the bus as he smashes over them. Kyrie Irving is still MIA. And yeah, the Ben Simmons experiment has completely failed. And you traded away James Harden, who looked, before he got hurt, like he was starting to regain some of that old form of his. They could definitely use a healthy James Harden right now over a healthy Ben Simmons, depending on how healthy he is. But it's also the supporting cast, right? They gave up a lot of size. Andre Drummond is gone. Blake Griffin is gone. They get just pummeled inside every night, even though they, average a bunch of blocks per game, but they get beaten up on the glass. They got a mess of problems. Nobody seems to be happy there. Yep. So I think it is time to get rid of the, cut out the cancer and just start fresh. Sean Marks and Joe Tsai really could use some fresh air in the building right now. And then that's not going to happen until they get rid of, a lot of these big name guys. Unfortunately, it's not the supporting cast that other than the play on the court just isn't working. It's all the extra stuff outside the building, the noise, the distractions. It just makes it impossible to focus and become a team, right? That's the biggest problem with this team is they're not a team right now. They're one guy and a bunch of role players, as Kevin Durant so eloquently put it.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody saw what he was saying today, right? Is look at that. Look at the starting five. It's me and a bunch of guys, and you expect us to win games just because it's me on that team? And then he prefaced it by no disrespect to these guys, but seriously, right? We also heard today, he talked about the trade request this offseason, right? He said it was easy for me to request a trade from the Nets because it's about basketball. That was his excuse, because it was about basketball. That made it easy. He didn't like Steve Nash. He thought that Steve Nash didn't work them hard enough in practice, and he didn't prepare them well enough for games. So it's good to finally figure out what Kevin Durant's problem was with Steve Nash, and hopefully the new coach can help fix this problem because, Kevin Durant is an amazing player, right? He's scored over, I think, 25 points every single game this season. He's got all the talent in the world, probably the second best player in the NBA currently, in my opinion. But he's on a team that's constantly losing basketball games. So hopefully the Nets can figure it out. But I agree with you, Calvin. I think that it's time to blow it up. It's time to trade KD. It's time to try and figure out whatever you can with Kyrie. Maybe trade Ben Simmons. Hit that reset button and just start fresh. Start from scratch. Get rid of the headaches. I love what you said. Cut out the cancer. I'm not going to go that far. But yeah, it's time to rebuild in Brooklyn.
Yeah, and I think mentioning the coaching aspect of this is kind of a telltale sign, right? That maybe the upper management there sees that the writing is on the wall, because we heard for a little while there that Ime Udoka was going to be the guy they were going to bring in, right? If you make that move, I think you still expect we've got a season to salvage here. We can still make this work. Otherwise, why else would you go all in for a guy that's suspended for an entire season by another team? Because you think that highly of him and everything, right? Not to say that Jacques Vaughn isn't deserving of being a head coach in the league, but the decision to say, all right, no, we're going to forget about Ime Udoka, at least for the time being. Jacques Vaughn's going to run this team. I think that kind of signals to me that they realize it might be time. It might be time to put this thing to bed.
Yep, 100%. Well, speaking of putting things to bed, let's talk about the Lakers, because they're already sleeping. They're currently 3-10 on the season. This team's trash, Calvin. They got the Glass Man's their best player. They got old LeBron is their second best player. And then their third best player, they convinced him to come off the bench, and he forgot how to shoot. So, you know, honestly,
he remembered once he came off the bench. He's playing like their best player right now.
Yeah. I mean, this Lakers team does not have enough depth. They do not have enough shooting. It just seems like a huge mess for them, right? They got a couple big names, but big names don't always win you basketball games. What do you think about the Lakers right now? I think we both agree they need to make a move. So honestly, what I want to know from you, Calvin, is put yourself in LeBron James' shoes. How's LeBron feeling right now?
I think LeBron is deeply regretting signing that extension. I have said it before. I'm incredibly shocked that he made that move, especially before the season started, you know, not really knowing what this team was going to look like. They don't have much room for error, not just this season, but for the rest of the time that LeBron's going to be there, right? I mean, you can't just snap your fingers every single time and magically make some super team appear. This is not an easy fix. Rob Pelinka did not do a good job putting this team together, and LeBron can probably take some of the criticism for that as well, because we know that he works so closely, you know, with the front office and deciding who's going to be on the roster here. They gave up a lot of really serviceable role players and took a swing at some unproven young guys. And again, we just talked about the Nets not being a team. This doesn't really look like a team either. They're relying heavily on older guys who are very injury prone, and Russell Westbrook to kind of be a renaissance man. They've actually been a decent defensive team so far this season, but they just flat out can't shoot, they can't score, and they can't keep guys on the floor. So it's a major, major problem in LA. And again, I think that LeBron is going to very much regret signing that extension. We might see him try to force his way out of it again, like he's done in the past.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on, whether LeBron's throwing in the white flag, as the bouncer says here, and waiting for his sons to get to the league so he can do something with them. You know, it's definitely something to keep our eyes on. As a Kings fan, I'm absolutely ecstatic that the Lakers are horrible, right? Part of it is because the Kings, you know, don't have to compete with them. Part of it's just I'm a Laker hater. You know, I just want to see them do bad. But it is unfortunate to see a guy like LeBron James, you know, one of the all-time greats, in a situation that he's currently in. But hey, he created that situation, right? He signed the extension.
He did.
He wanted to trade for Anthony Davis. He wanted to pick up Russell Westbrook. So, you know, at some point you got to deal with the decisions that you made. However, you know, to people saying that LeBron going to the Lakers ruined the Lakers, you guys got a championship out of it. Like, what else could you really want? Yeah. You know, yes, it's only one. Your fan base is spoiled. But hey, you got a championship out of that. Any other team would be super ecstatic to have something like that happen. So, you know, unfortunately, Lakers fans, they suck right now, Calvin, which is where they belong.
That's right. Down with the purple and gold, I should say.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Golden State Warriors. They lose tonight to the Phoenix Suns. Steph Curry puts up 50 points in this game. Steph's been playing incredibly well. Draymond Green seems to be regressing. Klay Thompson seems to be a little bit older this year. This team is, I believe, 6-9 now on the season, and they're below the Sacramento Kings. I'll just throw that out there. But they're continuing to fall in the Western Conference. What is the state of Golden State? You know, where do you see the champs right now, and what's going on with this team?
Well, I think that they're definitely not going to panic yet, right? I mean, they are the champs, and Steph Curry is the guy. Just absolutely amazes me. He seems to get better and better every year. A lot like we talked about LeBron, you know, just getting better and better in his old age. Steph just really is playing out of his mind right now. So when you've got somebody that good on your team, you know, and the supporting cast that they do, they're definitely not going to be worried so far. They're 6-1 at home, 0-8 on the road, which is kind of an unusual circumstance for a veteran championship pedigree team, right? But It's still early. The West is kind of jumbled still. And of course, they don't need the number one seed. They didn't have it last year and they ended up winning the whole thing. So I don't think they're going to be worried or nervous by any means yet. But there are definitely some different things. I mean, we've come to expect a lot of things out of the Golden State Warriors over the last 10 years, right? That they're going to be unbelievable from three, the ball movement, great offensive team, beautiful basketball to watch. And they're also going to shut teams down defensively. That's the thing that has changed the most about this team. They're not stopping people. And I think it's a lot of what you just said. Draymond Green is not the elite defender that he used to be. And maybe his brain is taking over at times when it shouldn't be, right? To try to make up for all his inefficiencies. But again, Klay Thompson was one of the best two-way players in the entire game. And he is definitely not that same guy. I think he's still a good player. But it's clear to me that he can't provide the same types of things that they've been accustomed to hanging their hat on over the years. He's not the lockdown defender he used to be. He's a step slow, and he's very streaky this season when it comes to shooting. Sometimes he's lights out, sometimes he's ice cold, and they rely on him a lot. So you're having to see the young guys kind of pick up the slack. Jordan Poole's been pretty good overall, I would say. But James Wiseman is still a work in progress. They sent him down to the G League. Kuminga is still a work in progress. Moses Moody, sometimes he plays a bunch, sometimes he doesn't. Steve Kerr, I think, thinks highly of him, but he's probably not ready to kind of take over the Klay Thompson role just yet. So they're having to rely heavily on Steph Curry right now. They definitely need to fix their problems on the defensive end if they're going to make a run.
Yeah. I mean, it's the defending champs. It's the Warriors, right? You don't even get down on them if they're down 20 in the fourth quarter because they can score that fast if they really, really need to. What do the Warriors need to do? Like, I know you said clamp down on defense, get better. But, you know, if you're the front office, are you just kind of sitting pat? You're like, okay, I like my veterans. I like my young players. Or are you like, okay, we need to make a move here. Maybe this plan of keeping all the veterans and having all these young guys and bridging the gap to continue to, you know, have success for this team for the next 10 years. Maybe that plan is not exactly working as it was planned. And maybe we need to trade a guy like James Wiseman. Maybe we need to, you know, move some of these younger guys to bring more help now. You know, Steph Curry, as amazing as he is, he's not going to play like this forever. And you don't really want to waste seasons like this of his. So, you know, if you're Bob Myers, are you considering making a deal here?
I think the Warriors are a very interesting team to watch as the trade deadline approaches. You know, if they continue to drop games frequently like they're doing now, they're definitely going to be a team that I think says, as you just mentioned, we've got to capitalize on a 34-year-old Steph Curry having one of his best years. We can't waste this. They definitely had this dream scenario working out for them, right? They lose Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and Steph to injury for a long time. They get loaded with all these great young talents in the draft, and they're kind of thinking, well, great, we're just going to ride these guys off into the sunset, and the young guys will take over in their place. And after last year's run, it kind of looked like that was coming to fruition. But it's clear that, you know, there might not be as clean of a takeover between the young guys and the vets now as there maybe once was or once thought. And I think especially with the Western Conference returning all of these guys from injury from last year, becoming so much more powerful of a conference from top to bottom, you're seeing the Warriors be affected mightily by that. So, yeah, I think Bob Myers is definitely out there looking to see what he can do. And they're a very, very interesting team to keep their eye on.
I'm just going to throw it out there, Calvin. Every championship the Warriors have won, they've gone through a ton of injured players. Nobody's really injured at this point in the NBA, so they're dealing with teams at full strength, and it's tough on them. Shout out to Key Kings here in the chat. Thank you for joining in. Matthew here. Matthew says, how about Jeremy Grant? Yeah, Matthew, we're going to talk about the Blazers here in a little bit, and we got a lot of positive things to say about Jeremy Grant. That is for sure. All right, next up, let's talk about the Sixers, and then we'll kind of give a brief overview on all the games that happened today. But Sixers are currently sitting at 7-7. We talked about James Harden being out due to the foot injury. Joel Embiid's been killing it. I remember, what was it, like a week ago or maybe just a couple episodes ago, Calvin, you're raving about him and this huge stat line that he had. Obviously this team is trying to figure out who they are. I like Tyrese Maxey. I like Joel Embiid. James Harden, which Harden is he going to be, right? Is he going to be fat Harden? Is he going to be skinny Harden? Whatever Harden he's going to be, we need him on the court. They brought in guys like PJ Tucker and Daniel House. I was thinking old school Celtics days. Daniel House, and they actually lost a second round pick due to tampering with those guys. But give me your thoughts on the Sixers, where they're at. Is this a title contender?
If this team's healthy, I worry about their bench. I don't think that they really have that strong of a bench coming out to help the starters. And they gave up a lot of those guys that they really relied on a lot. Andre Drummond, again, being one, Seth Curry. So they're missing a lot, I think, in terms of their reserves. But if you look at this team's starting lineup in a 7-game playoff series, if they're fully healthy, I don't want to play that team. They should be a very, very tough out no matter who you've got. I love Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, if he, like you said, if he's able to play like we expect him to. And yeah, Embiid is as dominant as it gets inside. So I think this team is still, they're going to be fine as long as they get into the playoffs healthy. But the question is, are they going to be able to put themselves in the right position before that? And again, a tough Eastern Conference. Yeah. We will see what the Sixers can do here. There's definitely a lot of good teams. Competition's back, Calvin. The NBA is looking as strong as ever. They're ready for expansion, right? These teams can afford to lose some players now. There's probably more talent in the NBA than there's ever been. So, and it seems to be pretty spread out. And seeing teams like the Kings get better, right, in a small market situation just makes me excited, right? Because it means that this league is spreading out the talent. They're figuring out a way, for small market teams like the Sacramento Kings to still remain competitive, which ultimately is in the best interest of the NBA. So definitely good news there. Let's talk a little bit about today's games. 10 games today, a ton of games. Only 3 games tomorrow. First off, we had the Indiana Pacers take on the Charlotte Hornets. They beat the Hornets 125-113. 22 points, 11 assists for Tyrese Halliburton, 26 points for LaMelo Ball. We talked about him tweaking his ankle in that game. Minnesota takes on Orlando in Orlando, defeats them 126-108, 35 points for Anthony Edwards. 26 points for Bol, who's currently starting for the Orlando Magic. Oklahoma City takes on the Washington Wizards, beats them in Washington 121-120. SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 42 points for him tonight. Ballin'. He is absolutely balling. 27 points for Kristaps Porzingis. And we know the Wizards have been on a pretty good run as well. So good news here. Missing a lot of key guys, too. Yeah. The Boston Celtics take on the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. They win 126-101, 22 points for Jaylen Brown, 27 for Trae Young. This game was a lot of fun to watch. I expect there to be more battles between these two, potentially in the playoffs this year. We know Atlanta added on DeJounte Murray, and Boston obviously, came off a really good season last year where they picked it up after the trade deadline, made the NBA Finals, and they were playing incredibly well. So we'll see if they can have a bounce back season here. Miami takes on Toronto in Toronto, and the Raptors win 112-104 tonight. 32 points for OG Anunoby. Good to see him scoring really, really well. Having a great year. And Max Strus, 20 points for him and the Miami Heat, but the Miami Heat lose here. Cleveland takes on Milwaukee. Milwaukee wins at home 113-98, 29 points for Brook Lopez, 23 for Darius Garland. Next up, Chicago takes on New Orleans. The Pelicans win 124-110, 23 points for CJ McCollum. He continues to have an incredible season here after being traded
to New Orleans at the trade deadline last year from Portland. DeMar DeRozan puts up 28 points. We talked about it kind of in the intro here. They are waiting for Lonzo Ball to get back in Chicago. They definitely need some more help. But I'm high on this Chicago team. I think they can make something happen. But yeah, they do need to get healthy first. Houston takes on Dallas, the Battle of Texas. Houston wins 101-92. Kevin Porter Jr., 17 points, leads all scorers for the Rockets. Tim Hardaway Jr., 28 points for Dallas. New York takes on Denver, and they win 106-103 in Denver. 34 points for Julius Randle and 21 for Jamal Murray. And then the final game of the evening, the Golden State Warriors take on the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix. And the Suns win 130-119, 29 points for Cam Payne, and 50, that's right, a 50-piece for Steph Curry. Calvin, did you have a chance to watch any of these games today? Anything you were really looking forward to? And out of all these teams that I mentioned, what team are you the most high on right now?
Man, well, first of all, I was very busy at work today, so I did not have much opportunity to see many of these games. I did catch a little bit of the Celtics-Hawks game and a little bit at the end there of the Warriors game. Watched Steph Curry just go crazy there in the second quarter, which was obviously fun. But I was not able to watch much of the other games, unfortunately. As far as which team am I highest on, God, I mean, I think you have to stick with the teams that are, at the top right now. Milwaukee, obviously, and Cleveland. Even though both teams have kind of lost a few games here as of late, I still feel so confident about them. Darius Garland just went for 50 the other day, 10 3-pointers. He looks like his vision is totally corrected from that early season injury. They're a very, very scary team, very deep. I love pretty much everybody on that roster. I think they're a really, really complete team. And then out west, it's really just, I think, who's kind of a battle of attrition here, right? There's so many good teams. Which team is going to be able to stay healthy enough and find their rhythm, for long enough to kind of come out of the pack there? You don't want to get stuck in the play-in tournament if you're in the Western Conference, because not only are you going to have to battle probably a really good team just to get in, but then all of a sudden you're the 7 or the 8 seed, and you're going to have to go up against one of the heavyweights, the juggernauts. So that's a rough situation to be in. It's going to be everyone's talking about the race to the number 1 pick this year. I think the race to stay out of the play-in tournament is even more intense.
Yeah, we got a ton of different races going on this year, which is definitely exciting. Good for us basketball fans. I mentioned the Celtics today. They beat Atlanta 126-101. The Celtics are on a hell of a winning streak right now, Calvin. They find themselves.
Of course, I didn't mention them, but they're the one team you probably don't have any worries about, right?
Yeah. I mean, they find themselves at the top of the Eastern Conference here at 12-3. They're currently on an 8-game winning streak. This is interesting, right? Last season they were right around 500 at the trade deadline. They went on a huge run, to advance. They play well in the playoffs. They make it to the finals. This is kind of something similar here, right? In a shorter time span. This team was 4-3. They go on an 8-game winning streak. Now they're on the top of the Eastern Conference at 12-3. Obviously, they have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. This team didn't add a lot this offseason. They're just continuing to grow, continuing to improve. These young players are getting more time. They're getting more experience. And then obviously, we talked about the head coaching change and all that. But I want to hear from you. Is this Boston team legit? What do you think the ceiling is for this team? I know you have Milwaukee going to the finals as far as Eastern Conference teams, but I want to know how high you are on the Boston Celtics.
I'm about as high as you can be on the Boston Celtics. This team is more than legit. This team is a title contender for a long, long time, as long as they stay, reasonably the same construction as they are right now. And you said they didn't add a lot in the offseason, which is true, but I think they did add some very important pieces. Malcolm Brogdon might be one of the most underrated or overlooked additions of any team, and that's simply because the Boston Celtics were already a great team, right? But to have him coming off the bench, a guy that, yes, has had a lot of injuries in the past, but now you don't have to play him starters minutes. You're a really deep team, so you can even sit him out, get him some rest. To have a guy that good coming off your bench, being able to take a lot of the pressure off Marcus Smart if he falls into a bit of a slump, I think that was a genius move by the Boston Celtics. They don't even have Gallinari, but he would have been a great fit for this team as well. Once they get Robert Williams back, just look out. I mean, we talked about them in the playoffs last year. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are incredibly special together. I mean, they might be – this is obviously a reach saying it, but they're the closest thing I've seen in the modern day to Jordan and Pippen. They really 100%. Are two-way guys 100%. That are unstoppable on both ends of the floor, can just absolutely kill your team single-handedly every night. Those two together will take this team as far as they can go. I mean, they easily have a chance to win a couple of championships in the next 5 years.
Yeah, Jordan and Pippen, Wade and LeBron in Miami, whatever you want to compare them to, this is an amazing tandem. Two guys that are young, both could be in MVP conversations, and both can do everything on the basketball court. So when you have two guys like that, your team's going to be competitive for a really, really long time. I expect Boston to be a very, very hard out here in the playoffs this season. I think they got a chip on their shoulder from last year's playoff or finals loss. I don't see any hangover for them. I see a chip on their shoulder. I see a team that's determined to win basketball games. I expect them to go pretty deep here in the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see, where they end up sitting here in the Eastern Conference Finals towards the end of the season. Because obviously, if they're facing a team like Milwaukee in the first round, things are going to get much, much tougher for them. But as long as they can
be one hell of a first round matchup.
Yeah, as long as they can kind of stay here in the top four, I think they're going to go pretty far. Shout out to Charles here in the chat. Matthew says, who owns the Lakers pick if they get I think the Lakers pick is protected. So the Lakers get to keep their pick. It doesn't go to the Pelicans unless I
thought it was a pick swap. Didn't we decide or say it was a pick swap?
I'm going to look this up real quick. You're right. Maybe it is a pick swap, huh? Those really, it's like a way to get around, the rule of not being able to trade consecutive picks, but it can definitely hurt your team, right? Because there's no protections really in a pick swap usually. Let me find it here. LA Lakers, future picks, Orlando Magic. Oh, too far. Okay, LA Lakers. First round draft pick is a swap with New Orleans. New Orleans has the right to swap its 2023 first round pick for the LA Lakers 2023 first round pick. Yeah. And then they get the 2024 first round pick.
The Lakers.
So yeah, it's the Pelicans. The Pelicans do good, the Lakers do bad. They just switch picks with them. So the Lakers do have a first round pick this year. However, they can swap it out if they need to. PK says the Pels get top 7. Are you sure, PK? I thought it was that as well, but I think it's a pick swap like Calvin was saying. Anyways, moving on here. What are you thinking about the Blazers, Calvin? They're 10-4 here. Obviously, they added Jeremy Grant. They drafted Shaedon Sharpe. They made a couple other moves. They gave Anfernee Simons the bag. They decided to hold on to Dame Lillard. They got a rookie head coach, who I absolutely love, right? Mr. Big Shot. But they're 10-4 right now. They're the top of the Western Conference. How are you feeling about the Trailblazers? Is this team legit? Is this team a playoff team?
I'm starting to think that they are a playoff team. I don't know if about title contender yet, but look, this is a team that I don't know if I want to say roll the dice is the right term to use here, but look, they stayed true to Damian Lillard. Obviously, he has stayed true to them for his entire career there. And maybe people didn't necessarily forget how good Damian Lillard is, but he's back in a big way, right? And again, when you've got a player that is that good with a supporting cast that's pretty reliable, a really decent big man inside, Nurkic causes a lot of matchup problems and wins a ton of rebound battles in there for them, as well as a big body to defend. But the wild cards on this team, right, are starting to come into fruition. Anthony Simons having a breakout season. That backcourt is firing on all cylinders. Jeremy Grant is, probably the big winner right now of this team and maybe of the entire league, taking a chance, grabbing a guy who a lot of people talked about at the trade deadline last year, but they were afraid to pull the trigger on because they weren't really sure if he was a legit player or if he was just a stat sheet stuffer on bad teams, right? He's doing the exact same thing that he's done on bad teams, but now they're a good team. And again, Shaedon Sharpe, another guy that they rolled the dice on. Didn't play at all in college last year, but one of the highest potentials of anybody in the draft. It's not like he's, on track to become an all-star anytime soon, but it looks like that pick might have been a good pick. And then guys like Josh Hart, great role player. They just seem to be kind of fitting into their roles, much like we're talking about the Sacramento Kings. The difference is Damian Lillard has been a superstar for a long time. Anthony Simons might be a rising star, and now you've got that third piece in Jeremy Grant. As long as those three guys continue to lead the way, this is a legit team, at least in the regular season.
Yeah, this is a legit team. I don't think they'll stay at the top of the Western Conference, right? We've seen multiple teams here already. We've seen Utah, which we're going to talk about next. We saw Portland. I think they're kind of cycling in and out of this. I honestly don't see Portland as a top 4 team in the Western Conference. I think they're probably going to settle out at maybe 5 or 6. We'll definitely keep an eye on that. But yeah, great additions for them. They swung for the fences this offseason, and they made good contact, right? Shaedon Sharpe, I think, could be, like you said, one of the highest potential players, one of the best players coming out of last year's draft. But it was a big gamble, right? Because we hadn't really seen him. We didn't really know what to expect. And he's coming off the bench for them still. So, this guy is going to continue to get better. Whether he enters in the starting lineup or not, is yet to be seen. But this Portland team is legit. And they're a better team than last year. It's crazy. Trading, CJ McCollum, trading some of these other guys. I was a little questionable. I wasn't really sure what the Blazers were doing, but it seemed to work out for them. Quickest rebuild I've ever seen, and they're definitely a legit team this year. And we got to see them play on opening night against the Sacramento Kings in Sacramento. So, this is a good basketball team. They just have to stay healthy. That's going to be key. We've seen them miss a ton of guys due to injuries over the past few seasons, and that's really, really impacted them. This is a team that made the Western Conference Finals just a few seasons ago, and they've struggled to get back there. So we know they're definitely swinging for the fences here. All right, next up, let's talk a little bit about the Utah Jazz. They've dropped recently, right? They've been losing some games. They're currently 4th in the Western Conference. However, they got 10 wins, dude. There's only 4 teams in the NBA with double-digit wins, and the Utah Jazz are one of these teams. They started out this season incredibly hot. We all know about the offseason drama, right? They traded Gobert. They got a ton. They got a ton for Rudy Gobert. They traded Donovan Mitchell. They got a ton for Donovan Mitchell. I'm a big Colin Sexton fan. I love what he's able to do for that team. They got Jordan Clarkson. Lauri Markkanen's probably having the best year of his career. But, how are you feeling about this Jazz team? Because they were off to this extremely, extremely hot start. And we were all just looking at them, not really believing, saying, it's too early. It's only a few games. This team is just getting out ahead, but they're not really legit. They're currently on a 3-game losing streak. However, they're 10-6. They're still plus 3.5 in the point differential. How are you feeling about Utah? What do you expect out of this team this season? And what do you think management expects out of them? What's a successful season for the Utah Jazz?
Well, I think they've already had a successful season. This team was projected to win like 24 games or something. They've already almost got half of that. And we're about not even a quarter of the way through the season. I think in hindsight, you have to say this team won the offseason, right? Not only did they get rid of guys, that had quote unquote been a problem there for a couple of years, or just, underachieving in general. They replaced them with good young talent that seems to have come together now. These guys all have chips on their shoulders. They're trying to prove people wrong, that they're, a legit team, especially a guy like Colin Sexton, who to me is still one of the biggest mysteries about this offseason. I'm not really sure why more teams weren't in on this guy. He is a fantastic player. Lauri Markkanen in his new role seems to be absolutely relishing it. Mike Conley, I think, has kind of been loosened up a little bit, maybe not as much as expected of him, offensively to carry the load. He's more of a true point guard now, more of a distributor for this team. Jordan Clarkson has been great as a starter as well. And they also amassed all the draft picks on top of that this offseason. So I think management is already considering the season a success no matter what happens from here on out. Because if you look at it from either perspective, they either prove everyone wrong and make the playoffs, or they're right back in the lottery, with a chance to grab the number 1 pick and all those draft picks for future drafts to come. So I think that they're very happy with what they've got going already. Will they be there at the end of the year? I'm not so sure. I still think once you go through the rest of the regular season, the grind, so many good teams in the Western Conference, they're going to beat each other up, and the Jazz will kind of fade into the middle of the pack. But it's definitely still possible for this team to be a playoff team.
Matthew's got a good question here. What do you think of the Utah coach? That's Will Hardy. What do you think of the coaches the Kings didn't pick up? So obviously that's Darvin Ham with the Lakers. That's Will Hardy here with the Jazz. Honestly, for me, like, the Kings are winning games. I'm totally happy with where they're at, right? One of the things I was really adamant about is this Kings team needed an experienced head coach. They needed someone that's been there, done that, that is going to get the respect of the players. Things seem to be working out well in Utah with Will Hardy. And, I'm not saying he would have been a bad option for Sacramento. I'm just saying, I'm happy with where we're at with the decisions we made. What's your thoughts on Darvin Ham, Will Hardy, and what they're bringing to their teams this year?
It's very early still. I mean, it's hard to really give out an official grade, I would say, on either of these guys. The only thing I will say is coaching trees, in the NBA are obviously a big deal. The types of experiences you've had, who you were with on a staff for a long time. Will Hardy's comes from a great coaching pedigree, and it seems like anybody who's a coach on the Boston Celtics turns out to be a pretty good head coach, at least for the time being. Darvin Ham, I think he was dealt a rough situation in LA, but I will say that I think he's a good person to be there. Given his history, his life story, he comes from a very difficult upbringing, had to fight a lot for everything that he eventually earned himself in life. And I think the Lakers are kind of in that same boat right now, where they were expected to be really good. They've kind of fallen flat on their face here. He seems to have been able to lift Russell Westbrook up a little bit. So I think Darvin Ham is a good fit for this team right now. I don't know what the Lakers are going to look like at the end of the season or even going into next year. It's still too early to tell, but I'm happy for both these guys. I think they're in good situations, and I think the Jazz really scored.
Yeah, definitely. They're looking great, man. I think this Jazz team, is in a best case scenario for them, right? Honestly, it's like you traded your 2 best players, you got a ton back for those guys, and your team is still winning basketball games. Your team is better than half the teams that you traded your players to, right? So I think this is a big confidence booster for them. I obviously think this team is going to settle back down. They're going to lose a ton more basketball games. Honestly, if I'm them, I'm probably going to trade some of these guys while their stock is high, while things are looking really, really good. The point of the NBA is to win championships. This team has proven that they are not okay just making the playoffs. Otherwise, they would have just stuck with Gobert. They would have stuck with Mitchell. But this team says that that's not enough, right? They got a new ownership group. Dwayne Wade's there. This team wants to bring a championship to Utah. So I think they got to blow it up here. I think they need to trade the rest of these guys while they can and get on that Oklahoma City rebuild, because that's really is the map here so far. Next up, I want to talk about the Sacramento Kings. But before I do that, let's address a few things here in the chat. I see Charles and PK are talking about Victor Wembanyama. He's too skinny. What's he going to be able to do in the NBA? The bouncers, jumping in here. Charles is comparing him to Bol, Kevin Durant. Calvin, tell me about Victor Wembanyama, because, obviously this dude is probably the best prospect that we've seen since LeBron James. Some people argue that he's a better prospect than LeBron James. I disagree. But, just because somebody looks this good, this young, doesn't mean they're going to be a productive NBA player. I just got to put that out there. I think that Victor will be a good NBA player. I'm just putting it out there that, the success that he's had does not always translate over. And that's not even including injuries, right? Injuries are a whole nother question there. Whether it's his size, whether he can fit with some of these bigger guys, whether it's just the adjustment to the speed of the game, conditioning. There's a lot of different things. Whether he ends up on a right team or in a bad situation, I love Marvin Bagley. But he ended up in a bad situation in Sacramento. You couple that with the health issues, stuff like that, it just kind of snowballed into a horrible situation for him. He's trying to get back on his feet here in Detroit. But Calvin, tell me your thoughts on Victor Wembanyama, because you and I are super high on him, but at the same time, he's still a question mark.
Well, yes, he's a question mark. Every prospect is a question mark until they eventually make it, right? Even LeBron James, who was considered a guaranteed thing, and admittingly was a guaranteed thing, he was a question mark until he played his first game in the NBA. I'll just say this about Victor Wembanyama. I've never seen a big man as skilled moving with the basketball as him at his age, at 18 years old. He reminds me a lot of Kevin Durant and Giannis when they came into the league. Very similar build, and even similar skill sets. He's kind of a mix between the two of them. Is he too small to make it in the NBA? I think it's unfair to say that, because of the fact that guys like Kevin Durant have made it in the NBA coming in. That was always the knock against him. He's too skinny. He won't be able to handle banging inside with big bodies. You don't really have to do that anymore in today's NBA, especially for Victor, who's such a good outside shooter. The NBA has changed a lot over the years. Obviously, it's much more of a spread out three-point shot game. And that plays into Victor's hands. I mean, you're not going to block his shot. It's physically impossible. And he has a beautiful stroke. Not to mention he can handle the ball. I think playmaking is going to be an interesting thing to watch with him, because he's a guy that you're going to want to have the ball in his hands a lot, especially on the perimeter, just because of how good a shooter he is. So can he read and react to NBA speed, game, defenses, and still make really good plays for his team? Can he be an elite defender? That's, a bit of a question mark as well in the NBA level. But if I had the first pick, I would absolutely take him, and I would not hesitate.
Oh, yeah. You got to take him. You just absolutely have to take him if you got the number one overall pick. And like we talked about, right, you're probably not trading that pick no matter what you get, because this dude is such a great NBA prospect. Calvin, I gotta admit here, I have a little bit of a confession. I was so hyped after the Kings win yesterday. I just couldn't go to sleep, man. I was talking about basketball all night long. I was so stoked. Ash and I got into a little bit of a debate about, best player of all time, all this stuff. I pulled up some Wilt Chamberlain highlights because she hadn't really seen much of Wilt the Stilt. Dude, watching Wilt Chamberlain highlights, the dude was absolutely ridiculous, right?
He's a man playing against boys.
Yeah, and I mean, you hear from people, you're like, oh, well, he was way bigger than everybody, blah, 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 this, that, and you think that, like, oh, this dude just manhandled people inside and he just dunked on everybody. And he did do that. But the dude was a finesse player. The dude was an incredible shooter, right? There's quotes from the little documentary that I'm watching, and you know, it's like you got Bill Russell saying that that's the best player of all time. He's talking about, luckily there wasn't a 3-point line when he was there, because not only was the dude huge, the dude had a determination. You know, he had a drive. He wanted to be better than everybody else. And he has the finesse, dude. That little turnaround jump shot off the backboard was absolutely unstoppable. This was Dirk before Dirk. He didn't play long enough to have all the records, you know, as far as like scoring championships and stuff like this. But dude, this dude was averaging 50 points a game in one season. This dude was averaging 20 rebounds a game, 30 rebounds a game in a season. You know, go back and watch some Wilt highlights if you haven't seen them for a while, because that's what Victor Wembanyama reminds me of, honestly.
The most overlooked thing about Wilt Chamberlain, obviously the statistics, if you look back, are just ridiculous, right? And everybody thinks he was just an unstoppable scorer, and he was. But the one thing that no one will ever talk about with Wilt Chamberlain, he led the league in assists one year.
Yeah.
He was that talented. He was ahead of his time. When I was a senior in high school, I wrote an argumentative essay on why Wilt Chamberlain is a better player than Bill Russell. Everybody wants to credit Bill Russell because he played on this great team, won all these championships, and Bill Russell was a very good player. He was not as good as Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain is a god amongst basketball
Yep.
men, and
Yep.
he will forever be immortalized in that way.
Yep, 100%. And what a lot of people don't even realize too is this dude shot like between 50 and 60% from the free throw line. Imagine if he had shot 70, 80, 90% from the free throw line, the stats would be even more and more incredible, because this was Hack-a-Shaq before Shaq existed. Wilt Chamberlain, just absolutely incredible, man. I got to give a shout out to him. And as amazing of a basketball player as he was, Calvin, this dude might have been a better volleyball player than he was basketball player.
Yes.
I was watching volleyball
He was
highlights
also
of this guy.
an elite sprinter, like an elite track and field athlete.
crazy.
And for a guy 7'2", I mean, it's like he's like Paul Bunyan. You just hear stories about him and you're like, that can't be true. No man can do that.
Dude, his standing reach was 9'7", dude, with shoes on. Absolutely ridiculous, dude. Absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, honestly, that's not a lot of people are gonna make those comparisons, but that's who Victor Wembanyama reminds me of, is a Wilt Chamberlain. He's finesse guy, he's bigger, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, Wilt's a little thicker than Victor. That I like that rhymes.
Thicker than Victor.
But yeah, it's. Go watch some highlights from Wilt to Still. They're absolutely incredible. They are. All right, let's talk about the Sacramento Kings, because we know that everybody is here to talk about the Sacramento Kings. And then we got our drunk take of the night. So we'll definitely give you that here. But while we're talking about the Kings, everybody here in the chat, I'd love for you guys to be, a little interactive. I know you guys are having a bunch of sidebar conversations there in the chat. But if you guys got any questions for Calvin and I when we're done talking about the Kings, or even about the Kings, go ahead and drop them here in the chat, and we'll definitely touch on those, and we appreciate you all. So Calvin, I just gotta say this: the Kings who, right? Sacramento who, says the bouncer. The Sacramento Kings are currently the hottest team in the Western Conference right now, Calvin. They're riding a 4-game winning streak. They're rocketing up. They're beaming themselves up the standings.
Yep. Beam me up, Scotty.
It's absolutely incredible what this team is doing.
Light the beam! Woo! Yes, sir. Let's go, man.
The beam is lit.
The beam is lit. There you go. The Kings are lighting the beam after every single win. Calvin, did you know the Kings are currently 7-0 when they light the beam?
That is breaking news right there. 7-0.
Breaking news. Alfie Man called in sick. Yeah. I watch ESPN all day today, Alfie Man. I didn't do shit. I didn't do anything today.
I should have called
except
in
for
sick.
hang out in Hawaii. I saw somebody here in the chat talking about Hawaii and the weather. Have you ever seen that movie Groundhog Day? That's how the weather here is. Not cold like that, but it's the same every day, dude. It's 75 degrees. It's funny. I was actually going to put out a tweet today. The water is a little bit cold in the ocean today, but it's basically the same every single day. So welcome to Hawaii, or at least the west side where we live. But hey, let's jump here into the Sacramento Kings. And yes, Charles, we both do live on the island of Maui in Hawaii. But Calvin, dude, like, tell me, dude, make me feel good. Roster bait on this Kings team right now.
Well, I don't think I have to say a word to make you feel good about the Kings, but let's go for it anyway. I mean, where do we want to start here? Look, this team is finally coming together. We talked about it so much last night. Everybody seems to be filling their roles. The defense they've totally bought into Mike Brown's system. They're not a top 5 defensive team in the NBA yet, but the effort is there every single night. They're contesting shots, and when you have an offense that's as good as their offense is, that's all you need. You only need, a few possessions here or there, a few loose balls, a few extra rebounds, or even a flying block shot in the corner on Steph Curry to make a huge difference in the game. They're spreading it out. They're knocking down threes at a prolific rate. They're definitely one of the best three-point shooting teams in the entire NBA. Sabonis is coming together as this, utility knife that they use all over the place. He's playing at an all-star level. Fox is playing at an all-star level. And if you're going to get performances like that out of Terrence Davis on a nightly basis or even an every other night basis, this is one of the most dangerous teams in the league to play. Nobody wants to see them right now.
Yeah, and we saw the updated power rankings today. The Kings moved in the top 15 of the power rankings in the NBA. It helps when you score 150 points on TNT against the Brooklyn Nets. But the Kings are looking good, man. They're second in the NBA in points. They're fifth in the NBA in assists. They're fifth in field goals made. They're fifth in 3 points attempted, fourth in 3-point attempts made, ninth in free throw attempts, second in field goal percentage, sixth in 3-point percentage, and second in overall TS percentage. So this offense has definitely picked it up. And Calvin, the thing that stands out most to me about all these numbers is this team's not only putting up points, but they're doing it really, really efficiently.
Yes, very efficiently.
Matthew says we don't talk about our defensive numbers. I'll pull the defensive numbers up, Matthew. We can definitely talk about the defense.
They're getting better, though.
Getting better. They're not the best defensive team in the league, but I'll pull up the stats here. Let me scroll down. So they're fourth in the NBA in rebounds allowed. They're second in the NBA in offensive rebounds allowed. These are absolutely huge numbers. These are things that the Sacramento Kings have had huge problems with in the past. They're currently seventh in the NBA in three-pointers allowed, and they're seventh in the NBA in defensive rating. So take that, Matthew. I'm going to drop the mic.
The Kings have, I think the most interesting thing about this team right now is it's pretty clear they've committed to small ball, right? I mean, you can only do so much with what your roster is. They do have big men, but it's clear that in Mike Brown's system, those guys like Alex Len and Rashawn Holmes, there's not really a true role for them on this team unless they're up by 40 like they are the other night, or somebody's in major foul trouble and you need one of those reserves to come in. So they seem to excel and really have a big-time advantage against other teams that play small. But they've struggled with the bigger teams in the league. That loss to Portland on the opening night of the season. They haven't played a team like Minnesota yet. So it's going to be interesting to see now that they're starting to really gel as a team how they play against the big bigs of the league. The game against Orlando was a tough one. Size and length, I think, is what is going to bother this team the most, especially a team that's so good at shooting the ball.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And something that you and I had talked about before was, you know, this team, they really fit well. They compare well against teams like the Golden State Warriors, teams that like to play small ball. The Kings just, you know, it just fits. It works. You know, we saw it last night against the Nets, right? Teams that don't really have a huge inside presence. Playing a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves is going to be really interesting for Sacramento, right? We saw them beat Cleveland, one of the biggest teams in the league. You know, we saw them deal with Orlando, the biggest team. You know, and they've had some struggles there. Whether they add a rim protector, another big, is yet to be seen. But you know, this team is they're very versatile, man. They can do a lot of different things. And I mentioned all those offensive numbers, Matthew. I'm not going to say those defensive numbers again as much as you want me to. I know you want me to say those defensive numbers again, but the only number I'll give you is the Kings are currently number 7th in defensive rating. But the crazy thing is I gave you all those offensive numbers about this team, and our coach is a defensive-minded coach, Calvin, which makes me feel great. It makes me feel like the defense is going to settle down and get better as the season goes on. They added some new names this offseason, right? They have to figure out their chemistry. They need to work out some of these new faces, figure out where everybody belongs. But I keep seeing this comment over and over and over again in the other streams, and I see it tonight as well. PK says it. Our defense is like a swarm of bees, and yes. I couldn't agree more. We saw Terrence Davis be that guy last night. We've seen De'Aaron Fox be that guy. Obviously, Davion Mitchell can be that guy as well. But, you know, this team is playing exceptionally well. They're jumping passing lanes. They're communicating. They're switching. You know, this team looks like the defense is on a string at times. And I think there is room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. But from what I've seen so far, you know, the sky's the limit for this Kings team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to keep in mind that it takes a long time and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, literally, in order to become a really great defensive team. You can shoot your way up in the offensive standings or offensive rankings pretty quickly. You make a trade for a player that averages 30 points a game. You make a trade for a guy like Kevin Huerter that shoots 50% from three. That's going to dramatically improve your numbers very quickly from an offensive perspective. Defense takes time because it is a team effort. Not one guy is going to make that much of a difference, as opposed to on offense, one guy can make that much of a difference. They're starting to buy in. You can see the effort. The rotations are getting better. I think they're box and one sets, doubling guys, forcing the ball out, rotating back and covering, defending the three-point line, closing out. That's something that the Kings were so bad at over the past few years. They're much, much better this season. So even though the numbers aren't correlating right now, they're building this. And over time, it's a slow, gradual rise.
Yeah. And Monty has proven himself, right, to me. He's proven himself over the past few years that he's not gambling. He's not giving up and mortgaging the future to bring in guys. He's looking for the bargains. He's bringing guys in. He's being patient, and he's striking when he can, right? Everyone, you know, loves to talk about, oh, well, Tyrese Halliburton, he's a better point guard than De'Aaron Fox, blah, 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 all this. You know, this is a draft pick 12, right? People don't really expect a lot out of the 12th pick. You end up flipping this guy for an all-star in Sabonis, a guy that's played incredibly well. He had a 2020 triple-double or almost triple-double the other night, right? This guy has played exceptionally well. He fits really, really well with De'Aaron Fox and on this team. So trust in the process. This team is continuing to get better. Whether they swing for the fences, go for a big-name free agent in the offseason because they have a ton of cap space, or whether they try and trade for a Ben Simmons or somebody else here at the deadline is yet to be seen. But, you know, I think Monty's going to be patient. He's going to continue to just keep adding to this team, and it's going to get better. Charles here is interested in Jay Crowder. What are your thoughts on Jay Crowder? We know he's not happy with the Phoenix Suns. I honestly was a huge fan of Jay Crowder back when he got traded for Rondo and he ended up with the Celtics. I thought he played exceptionally well Had some issues in Cleveland. He's bounced around quite a few times since then. I think he was in Utah for a while. Now he's in Phoenix. He's not happy there, requesting a trade. If you're the Kings, would you make a deal for Jay Crowder?
Jay Crowder is a really interesting guy. I think that he would fit into this team and into Mike Brown's system really, really well. A guy that has, been known to be a good outside shooter, a really great defender, a great hustle guy, can guard multiple positions, has a lot of playoff experiences, played on some really, really good teams. He's definitely somebody that I would be, inquiring about a lot if I was Sacramento. The question is, what do you have to give up to get him? Is it worth it to mess with the team chemistry? He's a wing. They already have a bunch of wings on this team. And again, they already play a small lineup. It's not like you're changing things up by adding Jay Crowder in there. He's similar to a lot of guys that they already have on this team, which again, I think that's why it would work. But to me, it all comes down to what do you have to give up to get him?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? You don't want to mess up the chemistry on this team. You don't want to create another Shumpert situation where you trade a guy that you don't feel is very involved, but he ends up messing up the chemistry. It's funny, I was watching Grant Napier today. He had Jerry Reynolds on the show, and I was interacting with them a little bit in their live, asking them some questions. Grant was going with it. Then I asked him about whether he'd sign Cousins. Grant ignored my question, which I thought was pretty funny. Obviously, we know about his past with DeMarcus Cousins and all that. But one important thing is, I mentioned we need a nickname for Keegan Murray. So he said he was going to talk to Jerry Reynolds. He's going to get back to us with a nickname for Keegan Murray. So I'm interested to hear what he says there. But he didn't seem to be a fan of bringing Cousins back on. So just a heads up to all you guys. Grant is not on the DeMarcus Cousins bandwagon, in case
shocker
you were wondering. Key King says, do you guys believe that the Kings will get more nationally televised games this season? I say yes. What about you, Cal?
I say yes too. I think that they're not only are they a good team that should be on more nationally televised games, they're a very exciting team to watch, right? They put up a ton of points, they shoot a ton of threes, they play small and fast. They're good for general NBA viewership as a whole. So yeah, I do expect them to get more nationally televised games.
How are you feeling about the trade market right now? Are you? Is there anybody on this Kings roster that's on your no trade list right now? Because I'm so mixed. I'm so mixed. I've been talking about, the past couple years where I'm like, this team should be willing to trade anybody to get better. Nobody's off the market. If I'm trading for a better player, I'm in it. However, you can't have that mindset forever. That was a mindset of a team that's lost for 15, 16 consecutive years and just needs to simply add talent. I'm starting to see something, Calvin. I'm starting to see this Kings team play like a team. I'm starting to see some chemistry develop. I'm starting to see guys out there that actually care and want to win basketball games. So that makes me a little concerned about making a trade. Everyone's talking about, Terrence Davis played incredibly well last night. Let's flip Terrence Davis while his stock is high. I don't know if I agree with that, Calvin. He's played incredibly well defensively. He shot the ball well at times from three-point range. Obviously, last night made 7 threes in that game. But it's like, what are you going to get for Terrence Davis that makes it worth it in messing up your chemistry? For me, Richaun Holmes is my only guy that's really on the trade block right now, and I'm even questioning that. Where are you at here?
I'm right there with you, man. I think that being a fan of the Kings, is obviously an up and down thing, right? And I think Kings fans need to be very careful in this new uncharted territory here. For years, we've been begging for them to make some sort of real trade moves out there to drastically improve this team. They've done that. We're there now. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a championship contending team as presently constructed, but at some point it's like, how much more do you really want? You know, we're not going to trade for Giannis or Kevin Durant anytime soon. So outside of that, you're right. Like, why would you trade Terrence Davis at this point? What are you really going to get in return that's that much better for him right now? Obviously, he's got to be consistent and keep this play going, this level of play going. But there are a lot of players on this team that's starting to come together under Mike Brown that I'm saying there's no way I'm trading them right now. I mean, I think anybody in the starting lineup, you're probably outside of maybe Harrison Barnes, you're saying is definitely off the table. I don't want to trade Davion. I don't want to trade Malik Monk. Terrence Davis right now I don't want to trade. Trey Lyles has been really, really good. You know, it's just like these guys are playing really well together as a team. I still think that, yes, another big man, whether it's a guy that's going to start alongside Sabonis or somebody that comes off the bench, could really help this team.
Yeah.
Are they able to get that guy right now, though? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And when the right deal comes around, we should know when that is. You know, the Kings are holding on to future draft picks. But, you know, draft picks don't win you get basketball games, Calvin. You know, they allow you flexibility to bring in guys. They allow you flexibility to get rid of guys that you overpaid that maybe you shouldn't have. But they ultimately don't win you basketball games until they're converted into a player, right? That even takes time as well. This team has been, pretty consistent on, we don't want to mortgage the future. We want to win now and set ourselves up. This team has been bad for so long. We should have the assets that we need, right? I'm looking here at the roster. You got De'Aaron Fox. He's 24 years old. This dude's 24, right? About to turn 25. He's still got 3 years left on his deal. You got Sabonis. He's obviously the guy you're trying to convince this offseason to re-sign. He's only 26. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Harrison Barnes is probably the odd man out that you mentioned. He's 30 years old. This is the last year of his contract. What happens with him? Something to definitely keep an eye on. But guys like Kevin Huerter, who you just traded for, he's only 24 years old. He's got 3 years left on his contract. Malik Monk, 24 years old. You got another year left on his contract. Keegan Murray, 22, 3 years left on the rookie deal. Davion Mitchell's 24, 2 years left on his deal. Terrence Davis is 25. He is entering the last year of his contract. So, maybe he signs a contract extension. Maybe they think that he's getting paid a lot of money this offseason and they can't afford to keep him. I really hope that's not the case. This team just has a ton of young talent. So what's the point in making a big trade? These players can get better. De'Aaron Fox, I'm not saying De'Aaron Fox will be a Kevin Durant, but he's only 24. Kevin Durant was not Kevin Durant at 24 years old. It took him time to mature. It took him time to get better. And yes, he was better than De'Aaron Fox at 24.
He's pretty good at 24.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that, but I'm just saying, like NBA players, good NBA players age like fine wine, and they get better as they get into their later 20s, early 30s. And this team's got a ton of time to gel. You look at most of the teams that are in the playoffs over the past few seasons, they have starting fives that have been together for multiple years. It's rare that you trade and you switch up 2, 3, 4 guys in your starting lineup and your team is an incredible team the next year. It takes time to build that up. This is year 1 of Fox and Sabonis. I don't count last year as a year for them. This is year 1 for Fox and Sabonis. Harrison Barnes has been there for a while. This is year 1 for Kevin Huerter. This is year 1 for Malik Monk. This is year 1 for Keegan Murray. This is year 2 for Davion Mitchell. It's going to take some time. You got to be patient. Richaun Holmes is the only guy that I see as a tradable asset right now on this team. He's 29. He's got 2 years left. I thought it was a pretty reasonable deal when it was signed. And he's not getting any playing time. So, whether I want to trade Harrison Barnes, that's where it gets really, really sticky. Because I feel like he helps this team a lot. Even though he hasn't performed like I would like him to be. But yeah, Richaun Holmes is probably that guy. I see Charles here. Yeah, maybe Lynn, maybe KZ. One of those guys, but,
again,
honestly, they're not gonna push the needle. They're not gonna push the needle.
Exactly. I say this all the time when we talk about trades. It takes two to tango. It's really easy when you're a fan of a team or you support a team to sit here and come up with all these trade, possibilities and say, oh, yeah, of course, we'll trade Richaun Holmes to Charlotte, or we'll trade Richaun Holmes to Orlando, or Alex Len, or whoever the case may be. But put yourself in the other team's shoes. If you're another GM, make me an argument for why I want Richaun Holmes. Make an argument for why I want Alex Len right now. If I'm another GM, especially on some of these contending teams, there's no way in hell I want either of those guys. So you have to find the right balance here. It's not just, oh yeah, we've got bigs to trade, so we're going to trade them. Another team's got to be willing to take them.
Yep.
And you're going to have to get something in return that you want. It's not an easy thing.
Exactly. Alfie Man says, keep the Kings as they are. I agree. This team's on a roll. There's no need to mess with it. They're young. We're in a great position salary cap wise. We have draft picks. Let's just keep it rolling. Brian's upset. He's got a Holmes shirt on. He wants Holmes to do good. Brian, we all want Holmes to do good.
We all do.
Holmes is a good guy. We want him to succeed. I honestly don't know if that's going to be on this team. We gave him the security. We gave him the contract, the money that he needed. That's probably going to change his life, honestly. But is he this guy? I really don't know. I don't know. But like Calvin said, it takes two to tango. I'm not trading Richaun Holmes to get rid of Richaun Holmes. I'm only trading Richaun if I can improve this team and get better. So, if I'm working out a deal, Richaun Holmes, maybe for a Jay Crowder, maybe that makes this Kings team better. And I'm on the same, I'm on for that. But, I'm not trading Holmes just to trade Holmes. We all want him to do well.
And here's another thing to think about, right? The culture of this team, this organization seems to be kind of changing a little bit. They're winning games. Maybe they break the playoff drought. They make the playoffs this season. They lose in the first round, but everybody's really excited about this team in Sacramento. The city is hype. Sabonis wants to re-sign. And then you've got $25 million in cap space where you can actually go out in free agency and say, hey, this is a team on the rise. We've got something going here. Do you want to be a part of this? Again, it's Sacramento. They're not known for being able to sign free agents, but you can help change a little bit of that narrative with a really good season this year, and perhaps making a trade prematurely, it would throw things off like that.
Yeah, it's possible. Well, hey, guys, it's that time again. The drunk take of the night.
Yeah?
Barry, what are you doing?
You kidding me? She's hot as hell. Looking for a little slap and pickle.
You sure you want to do this, man? You're drunk.
I'm drunk. You're drunk. Everybody's drunk.
The Sacramento Kings will be a top 4 team in the Western Conference by the trade deadline. And oh yeah, by the way, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, they're making the All-Star team. That's your drunk take of the night.
Wow. Top 4 team.
Wow,
that's a bold
Calvin.
take.
So, that sparks some questions for me. And, I got to ask you, Calvin, if the Kings are getting better, if they're improving roster-wise, or wins-wise, if they're moving up the standings, does that make you more inclined to make a move? Because where they're at right now, we're happy. They're just above 500. They're gelling. They're doing well. If this Kings team is a top 4 ranked team in the standings by the trade deadline, does that make you more inclined to pull the trigger on a deal? Or does that make you less inclined?
I think it makes me less inclined. I mean, if the Kings are a top 4 team at the All-Star break in the Western Conference, that means they're so far exceeding expectations. It's not even close. Like they're so far ahead of schedule. I mean, certainly you're going to explore options, right? But if they're playing that well and they're winning that much, I'm going to be less inclined to make a move for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to go back to what we've been saying for the past 6 months. Richaun Holmes, Harrison Barnes are probably the only guys that you'd even be interested in trading on this team. But it really depends on what the offer is. I'm not trading them for nothing. I'm not trading them just to trade them. I think the Kings have a great chance at re-signing Harrison Barnes this offseason. And something that a lot of people don't really talk about is the fact that the Kings have $25 million in cap space at the end of this season, and they could use that to sign somebody. And because Harrison Barnes has already been on this team, they can go over the salary cap to bring HB back. So I think that's something definitely to keep in mind there. Is, if this team doesn't want to mess up chemistry, if they want to continue with where they're at, they have cap space, they could sign somebody. And I think they probably have the best odds of any team in the NBA in signing Harrison Barnes at the end of the season if this team continues to play well. So that leaves me with Richaun Holmes. Do you want to trade Richaun? That opens it up. You have 36 million in cap space. Is there a big free agent? Are you going to go out and sign a Kyrie Irving? Probably not, right? So what does that mean for Richaun Holmes? Maybe Richaun is better off staying on this team, staying on the bench, and being an insurance policy, because we know the guy can ball. We heard Mike Brown rant about him in the offseason and how he really, really likes him and how he fits on this team. Just because he hasn't been playing games and playing well as of late doesn't mean he can't be. And we've seen Sabonis miss time due to foul trouble. We've been really, really lucky this year. I'm going to knock on wood here that we haven't had many injuries this year. But having a guy like Richaun Holmes, who's been with this team, knows what's going on, loves Sacramento, doesn't demand trades, doesn't seem to be quote unquote cancer as you've described other people in the NBA. Maybe having him available off the bench and making $11 million this year to be available, maybe that's the best move for the Kings.
It might be. I think it's still too early right now. The fact that the Kings seem to be figuring things out. They're riding a hot streak right now. I wouldn't mess too much with what's going on currently within that organization.
Yep.
And to answer Key Kings' question, I would not trade for Kevin Durant. I would not. Especially, if you're a top 4 team in the Western Conference, the reason I say that is because you're going to have to give up too much to get him. It's going to be like taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back, I think. They'll still be a good team, but not as good. I mean, one of the reasons why this team is so good is the depth, the role players, the shooting, all that stuff. To get Kevin Durant, you're going to have to give up a lot of those pieces.
Yep.
I don't think it's worth it.
A lot. You're going to have to give up a lot to get a guy like Kevin Durant. Matthew says, what movie is that? That's Beer Fest, Matthew. When Whiteside did good in Miami, but nothing in Sac. Yeah. There, it seems to happen here regularly. Charles says either Holmes learns to shoot and or pass, or he never fits. I don't know if you missed the last game, Charles. Holmes had a 3 in that game. He seems to definitely be working on the 3-point shot. But, yeah, shout out to the Sacramento Kings. They're playing incredibly well. We're going to be live tomorrow night post-game when they take on the Spurs. I'm excited to celebrate another victory, Calvin. I might be getting ahead of myself here, but I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling great about this Sacramento Kings team.
Of course. How could you not be feeling good right now?
Right. Well, I think that pretty much ends the show for the night. 3 games coming up tomorrow. The Brooklyn Nets take on the Portland Trailblazers. You have the Spurs taking on the Kings in Sacramento, and the Detroit Pistons taking on the LA Clippers. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. Please please don't forget to smash up that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, if you guys have not entered it in already, we are giving away a $250 Fanatics gift card. Just go to the Fanatics video on this channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and put in your favorite basketball team in the comments. You'll be entered in to win. We are giving out we are giving out the $250 gift card when we reach 1,000 subscribers. So definitely go ahead and share this video with all your friends and let them know about the channel. Calvin, any last words before we get kicked out of the bar here tonight?
No, last call, pay your tabs. Don't forget to tip your bartenders. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow on Royal Rebounds.
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the new intro on this channel tonight. We're messing around with some things. We're having a lot of fun doing it. We expect to have more exciting things next week. So make sure you join us for live next week. It will be a little bit later because I am working the basketball tournament, but we'll be live next Wednesday night. So thank you guys so much for joining. Have a wonderful evening. As Calvin mentioned, we will be live tomorrow night on Royal Rebounds. So we'll see you guys there. Thank you guys so much for watching. And in the meantime, don't forget to tip your bartender. And thank the bouncer on your way out.